Good.
Good evening. Welcome to the May meeting of the Cumberland County Board of Commissioners, which is being held tonight at Cumberland County Courthouse. As is our custom, we'll begin the meeting and invite anyone to join with us who wishes to do so by pledge of allegiance to the flag. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So our we have several things on the agenda tonight, and it'll be followed by an executive session to discuss some of our labor negotiations. That will not result in anything in terms of a motion to be passed after this session, so that will be how that works. And then after that, we will be having a workshop to discuss various opportunities and approaches to our regional assessing program. So, why don't we start with approval of the minutes? Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? And this would be for the April 8th minutes, which included an adjournment and continuation of the meeting on April 11th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
So I abstained because I wasn't here for that meeting.
So it's 4-0 with an abstention. Passes. And we are pleased to have an informational presentation tonight from the Emergency Management Department about youth fire safety program. So I'll turn that right over to you and be pleased to hear.
Good evening, Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity. Name's Joe Chappell with the Cumberland County Emergency Management Agency. Brought with me tonight, because I'm going to need some help and some backup, my Deputy Director in Lancaster, Chief Brent Levy from Windham, Chief Mike Thurlow from Scarborough, and Deputy Chief Jeff Emerson from Brunswick. They're going to have to fill you in on the Youth Fire Safety Collaborative, some of the nuts and bolts, as I am still learning, but I wanted to start off by presenting this proposal to you and kind of how it came to me and where we at kind of right now. So the Fire Safety Collaborative kind of brought to me, Chief Thurlow asked if I would attend a meeting down in York County to kind of get a take on how they're doing things down there. We both have a Fire Safety Collaborative, which is a at-risk youth counseling and education program for juveniles that are identified as at risk for starting fires. Is that a correct assessment? Good, see, I'm almost there. So, York County has a formalized process. One administrator or two administrative people that manage the program. There are points of contact for this collaborative. Cumberland County has a similar program, but it's kind of more of a sporadic, a volunteer group that have kept this program afloat for the past couple of years. They've done a great job. What they've asked me to do is see how we can formalize it here in Cumberland County. So that process started with Chief Thurlow and Deputy Chief Emerson asking me to attend and discuss the York County's process, how they manage it, what they're doing with it, and how it is sitting underneath the EMA office down in York County. So we attended a meeting with the Director of York County and Matt and Molly, who manage the York County Fire Safety Collaborative down there. I learned a lot. I can tell you I came away with a lot more questions, which I'm still working through. But one thing that did come out of that meeting is that it's well managed, and they have a better point of contact, and I think probably a higher success rate based on that single point of management in there. And it sits under the EMA office. I would explain that probably because this is not a punitive counseling session. This is not punitive, so we're not sticking it with the DA. We're not putting it under the LE or the jail staff. Kind of EMA, we touch kind of everybody. We have points of contact with public health, DA, jail, law enforcement, and fire, so it does make sense. So after that, after I've got educated on it, I came back, asked to sit with the DA folks here with Cumberland County. Sat with Mike Mack with the juvenile correction folks. We brought in, Travis Kennedy was also involved in that to kind of work out how could we replicate what York County did here with the county support. So after a couple meetings and a couple discussions, this is what Chief Thurlow and the Cumberland County Fire Chiefs Association came up with. And I think in your packet you'll see at least two documents. One is a proposal, which how we propose to implement this program within Cumberland County, what the management or what the financial aspect looks like. Also a bylaws of what a board of directors would be the advisory position for this program would look like. I want to make sure that I answer any questions you have, if any have popped up, before I proceed any further. Any questions so far? All right. Chief, I want to go on. Would you like an opportunity to say anything about? I want to make sure I'm not missing anything, because one, I will say from an EMA's perspective about what I've learned about this program, extremely successful, and I think it's a great investment that we make, regional impact and success here in Cumberland County.
I was just going to fill in a couple of the historical things. Joe, you did a great job with the overview. The Cumberland County Fire Chiefs started this process about 15 years ago, and we funded, it's been a volunteer collaborative, but it's been a broad coalition. It includes folks from fire, police, juvenile justice, the DA's office, and it's all about informal adjudication, educating folks so they don't have to go through the court system. It's been very successful. Back in 2013, the Cumberland County Fire Chiefs, with their own funding, actually hired a part-time coordinator and tried to do that on our own. And that person, it didn't work out. It worked out for about a year and a half. Just we didn't have enough resources to put enough time into it to make the job worthwhile for that candidate. And so we've just kind of kept the lights on since 2013. But as we've started to work with York County more, it's really apparent what a much better program they've got because of that quick and single point of contact. There's folks in that EMA office that work part-time every week. There's always somebody there, and one of the weaknesses in our program is we collectively meet once a month, we deal with the educational programs, and we do a good job with volunteers, but a lot of times by the time we get a referral and we're able to get the educational session set up for them, we lose them. You know, all of a sudden, well, Johnny lit the fire a month ago or 6 weeks ago, now Johnny's all better. And those folks are able to make much better inroads because they're able to deal with things much quicker. So in the financial proposal that we laid out, Cumberland County Fire Chiefs are stepping up to the plate. They're picking up all the costs for the first 6 months to show our demonstration and our support of getting this program off. And then we transition over the next couple of years with the county picking up more of the costs. And that way, we hope that over a 2.5-year period, we can grow our program to essentially duplicate what York County's done. The collaborative isn't going away. The folks that have been meeting every month and doing the great work that they have is going to continue. This coordinator will just help us streamline this process and take us to the next level. Fair enough?
Absolutely would never have said that, so thank you, Chief. So that's our informational packet. I mean, that's the proposal. The proposal is that we establish this here in Cumberland County. I have no issues with it housed at the EMA office. I think it makes a lot of sense. I'm open to any questions that clarifying points that I definitely missed out on.
Any questions? Commissioner Gordon?
Can you give me some estimate of how many people you might think will go through the program?
Chief?
We recognize probably on average somewhere around 20, 25 annually. And we probably have put through our education program, 2/3 of those that actually complete the program. But we're really just scratching the surface. That's part of the coordinator's directive is going to be to go and build awareness in a lot of the departments. We've got some real active departments, 6 or 8 out of the county, but there's a lot of departments that really aren't active. And one of the goals and one of the job descriptions is to to get out and educate those police officers and firefighters in the street so that when we identify one of these, we get the referrals, we get these folks in the program, rather than having them come through the court system as a last resort when they get in trouble. We want to do some proactive outreach. It's fair to say we've been administrating that number.
Two good points with that is, one, we're facing the same thing from an emergency management agency in Cumberland County. A lot of people still don't know who we are with the municipality and what we can do. So we're busy educating and making people aware of what EMA can do. And I know that with this collaborative, that's going to be one of the biggest missions is, now we have this, now it's under a roof, how do we enhance it and make it better? So,
Yeah, I live in the middle of town. I don't usually have anybody coming and trying to burn my house down. I mean, could you sort of sketch out what a typical referral or who it is, where it comes, where the referral comes in? I mean,
Yeah, no, I think it's better if you go to the mic, and then they can,
the people watching at home will be able to hear you a month
Absolutely.
from now, so.
they've been able to go get their popcorn, so they're all set.
So we get referrals from a number of different areas. Probably the most referrals come through our local police or fire departments. So we'll go to a grass fire, we'll investigate it, we'll find out that Johnny set this fire playing with matches or let some leaves on fire. So most of them come that way. We do get referrals from guidance counselors, from social services, from parents that'll call up and they may have had a fire, or may have tried to start a fire in a home or out back of the home that didn't require a fire department response or a police department response. So we get referrals from a variety of different sources.
And so what does the program involve and, from sort of the the consumer's point of view, what does it involve?
So once we get a referral, we go through a process where we meet with the student, the child, meet with the parents. We do an assessment to figure out just where on the scale that this incident
Sure.
ranks. Is this something that involves just curiosity, or is it something that's more pathological? Maybe there's some mental health issues going on. A lot of times, unfortunately in our society, there are mental health components to this, and there may be counseling already going on. So we work with the different stakeholders and social services to figure out what the best course of action is. If it's a simple curiosity-driven type situation, we have an educational program that does a great job. A lot of times, unfortunately, there's much deeper things going on, and it requires professional services, and we help link those, and part of our collaborative involves the social service component, so that we have those referral opportunities.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, comments? We appreciate you coming.
Thank you.
If I could just add, Mr. Chairman, one of the aspects of this partnership is to bring on a more stable employee. And that employee, we heard, was going to be housed in EMA. That employee will also be a county employee. And so at this point, I think, what are we doing, 20 hours a week?
10 hours a week
10
per
hours a week.
person. Ultimately, the first person would be, year one would be 10 hours a week for one person. And then with the intent of growing the program after year 3 to 2, if the numbers dictate and approval by the commissioners, to grow it to 2 people, which would be 10 hours per person a week.
So my hopes to bring this item forward this evening was to give you an introduction, because this is something that we're going to continue to work with the fire chiefs in our region, and you may see it come September when I present you will see it in September when I present the budget for the county for 2020, because we will have to start folding some of these expenses into our budget next year.
Yeah. From my perspective, this is the sort of thing we ought to be looking at.
Definitely a worthwhile pursuit.
And it's something that's kind of too thin on the ground for any one town to do a lot, but pool our resources through the county, and then we get some services that actually make a difference and are not a burden on any particular town. So I'm interested to hear how this goes.
Thanks a million.
Yeah, thank you, guys.
So, next, each meeting we have a time set aside for public comment. If anybody has anything to tell us at the moment, we'd be glad to hear from you. We limit that usually to 3 minutes per presentation. Seeing none, we'll move on to approval of our consent agenda. And would ask for a motion related to 19-029 through 033.
I move passage of 1929, 30, 31, 32, and 33.
And Commissioner Gordon?
I'd like to pull 19032.
So
Move
by
that-
motion,
Move that
we'll
to the
table that till
new
after
business.
we consider the consent agenda.
Second to Tom's motion.
And it's moved and seconded. Is there any objection to separate consideration of 032?
Nope.
Seeing none, that's so ordered. Any discussion on the remaining items? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. Now, entertain a motion on 19032.
Which one is
So moved. Is there a second? I'll second it. So, Commissioner Gordon.
Yeah, the question comes up again. First off, I was kind of shocked that there was no dealers in the state that had this vehicle available, and you had to go out of state. Can you explain or elaborate on that a little bit further?
For purposes of introduction, we'll say that 032 is approval of the Sheriff's Office purchase of a police interceptor. And glad to have you here this evening, and Commissioner Gordon's asked you a question.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Nello Gagnon. I'm the Chief Deputy of the Cumberland County Sheriff's Office. But there is no cars available. They stopped making them early on in the year, and so they're not producing that vehicle anymore. But MHQ, in anticipation of that, they bought a whole bunch. And they're offering for sale. That actually is the going rate from this past year, or this current year's price. So if we wait until the next production model, we're talking several $1,000s more for the vehicle. So it's.
So
we're at- Go ahead.
I take it that dealer to dealer, they can't do anything? Okay. The second thing, and I'm on somewhat of a mission here, when you get this vehicle, who does it go to?
It's to be a transport vehicle for the jail.
Okay.
Any other questions? It's been moved and seconded that this item be passed. Any further discussion? Seeing none, call for a vote. All those in favor of the item, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries. Thank you, Chief.
Just to quickly insert, manager asked if we could switch the new business and old business while he runs and grabs something.
All right. So that means we're going to ask Kristen to help us through another public hearing, and then we're going to deliberate on the CDBG budget for the coming year.
Thank you.
And we are having a public hearing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So to meet the formality, I'll open the public hearing, and if there's any members of the public who wish to be heard concerning this matter, now would be the moment. Seeing none, close the public hearing, and Kristen would be glad to hear from you tonight.
Thank you. Good evening, Kristen Stiles, Community Development Director. I'm here tonight for the second public hearing for our Cumberland County Annual Action Plan. As you know, this is the CDBG funds and our home funds. Shortly after our April 8th Commissioners meeting, we actually received our final allocation from HUD, so we have real numbers to work with tonight. For the CDBG program, we are receiving $1,553,331, which is a 2% decrease from last year. And for our home program, we are receiving $423,225, which is a 5% decrease from last year. As you know, the CDBG program has two set-aside communities, Bridgeton and South Portland. And when we were forming the Cumberland County CDBG program, in order to make sure that Bridgeton and South Portland continued receiving about the same amount of funds that they were receiving before joining the county's program, a formula allocation was created. And so South Portland, their allocation is 23% of the city of Portland's allocation, and Bridgeton is 45% of South Portland. This is important this year because the county's program decreased by $31,000, but the city of Portland only decreased by $2,000. So what happens with this formula allocation means that the $31,000 is pretty much coming out of the county's portion of that funding, not South Portland and Bridgeton. It's also important to note that a couple of years ago, the opposite thing happened of the county getting a large increase and the city of Portland getting only a small increase. So it works itself out over time of who's getting a larger or smaller increase. So I don't think it's something that needs to actually be adjusted. It's just important to note for this year. So the $31,000 decrease is going to affect 3 programs this year. And on that sheet that you have, you can see the difference in what our initial allocation was versus our final allocation. So it's the Cumberland County, or I'm sorry, Town of Cumberland Through These Doors Adult Abuse in Later Life Program, the North Yarmouth Village Center Study, and the Long Island Learning Center expansion will be the 3 programs that will see a decrease. And all 3 of these programs said that they can operate their project or their program just fine with the decreased amount. So that shouldn't really have too much of an impact. For the home program, as I mentioned at the April 8th Commissioners meeting, we are getting rid of our housing rehab program, which means that we're only doing affordable housing this year. So while there is actually going to be a $77,000 decrease, even though there's going to be a decrease in our home funds, there's actually going to be $77,000 more going to affordable housing this year since we've gotten rid of the homeowner rehab program. We released our home application on May 7th, and we have had 2 developers contact us, Avesta and Westbrook, letting us know that they're interested in applying this year. We've set the application deadline as August 1st, so I'll be coming back to you in September with which projects we have selected for our home funds. And doing this at the time frame that we're doing it over the summer allows them to get a letter of commitment from the county before they're applying for the main housing LIHTC, low-income housing tax credit funds. And I believe that's all that I have for you tonight. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
I just have it vaguely in my memory that the reason we are changing our allocation related to the rehab funds is the mechanical funding formulas that show up in the federal regulations basically are outdated to the extent that it's not really a functional program, and so moving
Correct.
those funds in some other direction
Correct.
is common.
So actually what we're doing is we have reached out to Habitat for Humanity and some other organizations that do housing rehab to see if we can get anyone that would like to take over what TOA, the Opportunity Alliance, used to do for us in the past, of running a housing rehab program throughout Cumberland County using the CDBG funds. What's great about the CDBG funds is you can do weatherization, you can do emergency repairs. So say somebody's boiler has broken, we can easily go in there and get them heat back in their home for the winter. Whereas with the home funds, if somebody's boiler breaks in the middle of winter, we have to do a full home assessment, and we wouldn't be able to go in and fix that without also fixing the leaky roof and any other code violations in the home. The problem with that is with the construction costs right now, 1, it's really difficult to get bids, and 2, those bids are extremely high. There's also a $15,000 limit on how much we can spend per home for the home project, and these homes, we pretty much just can't do them for the $15,000. So it ends up just not getting done. So what we're doing is not trying to eliminate doing housing rehab. It's just not doing it with the home funds and switching it over to exclusively doing it with CDBG funds if we can find somebody in Cumberland County that is able to do that. Habitat for Humanity is bringing it to their board in June. Hopefully, it will be approved by them, and then they'll apply in the fall for our CDBG program for next year to do a critical repair program, very similar to what Harpswell already is using the CDBG funds to do with their Habitat for Humanity program.
Other questions, issues? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So now we're, do we have a specific order that we're being asked to pass related to this?
Yes, if the commissioners would authorize myself, the county manager, to submit the 2019 annual action plan for the county's CDBG program and home funds.
Do I have a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous. We're now moving to new business. We do have one agendered item, 19034, acceptance of the County Commissioners 2019 Strategic Priorities Report. So this is, as I understand it, Mr. Gailey, and perhaps you could comment on this, the intention on this item is to adopt the report that has been prepared related to the staff and commissioners' planning session and strategic planning session, which was held a few weeks ago, and then have that become basically a policy outline for use by the staff and the commission going forward. So,
Correct.
So,
By adopting it or accepting it, it puts it a little bit more formalized and creates a good roadmap for staff to move forward over the next 1 to 3 years as we work towards the recommendations as set forth in our strategic planning exercise back in March.
So that has been circulated, and a summary of the proceedings has been circulated for review by the commission previously. So as to any debate on this item, we would first need a motion and a second to bring this matter forward.
I'd move to accept the strategic priority plan as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Moved and seconded, and how about any discussion related to this item? And I think I would use my poor memory of the entire event to maybe outline some of the things that we thought were important. Certainly, as always, the one of the highest priorities is to make sure that we open the door and are ready for business every morning in the various services that the county provides. And quite often, this process, which we've done a few times over the last 10 or 15 years that I can remember, involves trying to find the next priority or set of priorities that we feel is just needs our attention over a 2 or 3 year period, and so that's the basic outline of what we try to accomplish with that. One of the items that did come forward and was discussed at length, in addition to a very common discussion that we've had over the years related to trying to find ways to deliver better services that are currently quite often being delivered by 28 different towns and cities, try to deliver those on more of a consolidated basis for higher quality and lower cost, and that's something we're always paying attention to and have been. And one of the issues that kind of bubbled up pretty strongly was trying to find a creative and effective way for the county to coordinate and perhaps lead a role for the non-urban areas of the county to to be involved in the homelessness and housing crisis phenomenon that we seem to be persistently experiencing. So, though, that was one of the topics that was discussed that people wouldn't normally, I guess, associate with county programs at the moment, but the anticipation was that we would look at that over the next couple of years. So others have, I'm sure, their own impressions, and the report itself, I hope, will end up on our website at some point, and people in the county who are interested would have every chance to look at it and evaluate it themselves. Anybody else?
My comment about this is a little more general, and my memory is even worse than yours, Jim. So, but
That's hard to
about the specifics. Well, but I really appreciate the process that goes into that, and I appreciate we've tried different ways of setting the process up. This has been a good one. Some other ones have been good as well. So this isn't this is a little bit different every time, but I do appreciate the opportunity to get together with staff and others in a large format forum to sort of have a more freewheeling discussion about where we ought to be going, because it doesn't involve keeping the doors open every day. It's more like, what are we going to be doing 4, 5, 10, whatever years in the future? And I think that's really where the commissioners can have their biggest impact on it, is that I guess we're the folks that synthesize what the comments are and the needs and so forth, and try to steer the ship a little bit. It is a large ship, takes a long time to turn, so we're not going to tear it all down and build it up differently as a result of any one of these. But I think the changes in direction that we've had over the past 4 or 5 years have been well, I think, much to the improvement of the county. So I'm grateful for the county manager setting this up, and organizing it, and all the other staff that do that. I think it's very useful process. I get a lot out of it personally, and I think the county government benefits from having the longer term view periodically. So thank you.
Commissioner Jameson?
Yeah, I would just raise 2 points in terms of some of the list of bullet points that we gave priority to. One, in fact, was the our ongoing efforts to increase broadband access, particularly in rural areas, and make it affordable. That's been a focus of ours for a couple years now, heartened by the fact that there is legislation in Augusta pending now that would go in that same direction, but certainly that would be a big boon to our residents in the rural part of the county, people on in and around Sebago Lake that don't have great access. There's no reason why we shouldn't, in this day and age, try to facilitate those folks acquiring the best broadband access possible. Obviously, there's always a price tag attached to that. The second thing, and which is just as important, is to continue to work with our partners in state government and elsewhere to address the mental health issues in our jails, and so that we can use the jails in a more positive way and in a creative way, and not be treated as a mental health facility totally, or if we're going to do that, provide us with the resources so we can have one portion of a jail pilot project in Cumberland County, for example. But those are ongoing issues that we will face, not just in the next year, but the next several years. But I think they're great goals to try to achieve.
No, I'm all set.
Mr. Good?
Well, I'd like to reiterate a little bit of what Neil said. The first about strategic plan, I mean, the famous saying is, if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And this takes and focuses us into a road so that we know where we're heading. But broadband is very, very important, especially to the elderly in this county and certainly throughout the state, Because ultimately, what's going to happen, I believe, is that it'll allow a elderly person to be at home and have real-time monitoring from the medical group. And that will be life-saving events for everyone. And with our population aging and getting older and older, that will be very, very much important to them and this service that we're trying to provide. Thank you.
And since Kirsten is here, we have to mention that part of what we've been able to do is get some funding put together at the county level through the CDBG program to do some hands-on planning, and that's underway now, so that's fine. And both of the items that Commissioner Jamison mentioned are the subject matter of legislation now that early signs, and they're always deceiving, but early signs are positive, and if we could make it through the death of fine ideas that occurs at the end of the session when the money available gets added up, we will have made substantial progress in both of those items, the mental health work at the jail and broadband. So that's great. Any other comments? Pending motion is a motion to receive and accept the report of the strategic planning session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous? We're at the point of our meeting where we would ask, is there any other new business, I guess I should ask? Seeing none, any comments from the,
Jim, I have a question.
yes, ma'am?
Will we be going on with the Roadwood this summer?
We're gonna talk about that, I don't know if it's tonight or in 2 weeks. We have a workshop in 2 weeks.
Oh, in 2
I think
weeks.
that's actually an item for 2 weeks from now, but
I was going to make mention to it in my comments.
Oh, okay, okay, yep.
speaking of your comments, we'd be glad to hear them.
I'm up. All right, I got a few tonight. Question for the commissioners. Our June meeting typically falls on the Peter Feeney Golf tournament that Cumberland County has hosted for a number of years. And in some instances, it is tough for commissioners, if they attend, and staff to get from the festivities in the afternoon to the meeting. And I was wondering whether the commissioners would have any desire to maybe move that Monday meeting to Tuesday or Wednesday. I'll send out a subsequent email polling everyone, but I just wanted to put it in your thoughts at this point, whether you'd be interested in doing that. As Commissioner Watonis talked about, we are talking amongst staff about picking some communities to do our roadshow. I believe last year we were out on the road May, June, July, and September. This year, we have June, July, and September, or July and September. We typically take August off. That's why you're not hearing me say August. So that's something I will also accompany in that email about the June, moving the June date. We'll talk about what July and September look like. One thing that I made mention to the chair of the commissioners the other day was that where we land in September, I'd really like this time to have more of a formal meeting room. As last year, I think I lugged all the AV equipment out of this building up to the Grange Hall in Bridgeton to do the presentation of the proposed budget that night. So hopefully this year we'll land ourselves in a council chamber that has a nice overhead projector in it. Talking about dates, looking at May 28th, which is a Tuesday after Memorial Day, which falls that Monday. And the May 28th would be a workshop setting. I would request the opportunity to present the jail budget and the cross-insurance arena budget to the commissioners in a workshop session that evening, in anticipation of moving both budgets to the June meeting for further review and hopefully final acceptance. As the commissioners are aware, both those budgets are kind of like off-budget year from our general fund budget, and those two budgets start up July 1st. So getting them approved in June would be beneficial to the county operations come July 1st. And then lastly, I just want to put on the radar, and we'll have further discussions around this, but there is legislation up at the state right now around guardianships and representation around guardianships. That is going to bring a lot more complexity and workload to the probate office. And the Register of Probate just wanted me to kind of introduce that item to you this evening, and that it may take ramping up another staff person to, because of the type of legislation and the responsibility and the complexity of the responsibility that will be coming down the road if that legislation is passed in Augusta this year, which all seem to think that's heading down that path.
Do you have a bill number, Jim?
I do not right offhand. I tried to find it before the meeting, and I just couldn't put my hands on it right.
Is this new legislation, or, I mean, because the new probate code was adopted, what, 2 years ago or something?
Right.
With a
This is a new
start
bill,
date, so this is a tweak on top of
Yeah.
that. Okay, that's what I thought.
And that concludes my communications. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Kimball?
I'm going to channel Travis just a little bit here, and based on some conversations with the manager as well. This is typically the point in the year that we're all starting to get super stressed about jail funding, and the good news I have to report there is that at this stage in the game, the debate is really just about exactly how the funding model is going to work. Will it be pure formula-based, or will it be based formula plus losses from the prior year? We are prepared to work with whatever direction it goes accordingly, and we're keeping an eye on the jail budget for the current year along those lines, but that's where we stand. Much less dire news than usual, which is nice to hear. And that's the big thing I've got.
Mr. Brewer?
I have no comments this evening.
And our fearless executive,
I have no comments either. Thank you, though.
thank you, Barbara. Okay, commissioners, Commissioner Ruth Thomas
I don't have anything well for this month.
and Jameson?
I
It's bypassed you.
Good. One or two quick points. I'd like to congratulate the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department for obtaining a recent grant for one of, was 16 in the nation, was that? Yeah. To educate and train staff members in opiate and drug use. I think that's, so kudos to all the people, staff members, and leadership in the Sheriff's Department that made that happen, as well as the Executive Department that helped with the grant. And that's a good, it's certainly a good kudos for our county. And busy time of year, there are a lot of sports teams out there, even though it's supposed to snow tomorrow. So want to send best wishes to all our spring athletes and students participating in activities. Graduation is coming up, a lot of special times for many families, so send that call out to all our county residents who are in that situation.
Thank you. Commissioner Gordon?
Just short remarks. I'm seeing hope coming out of the legislature and from a different direction. I mean, there are a number of bills that are affecting us there, but one of the good things I'm seeing is some of the committees are beginning to take a number of the bills and either just moving them off the table or, and in doing that, pulling it together to create a study so that they can have a concept draft of a bill that covers everything. I'll give you one example. Is the Labor Committee, is they went through and killed a number of bills, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, with one smack of the gavel, and to pull it into the study like that. And I hope more and more of the legislative people do that. They realize that a number of these things are duplicative and just doesn't work right. There are a couple of bills up there that concern me. There's one about binding arbitration. That hasn't died yet, and I think that would be very inappropriate for governmental bodies. And the Appropriations Committee, I think Jim has alluded to that, looks like the jail funding is safe. So we hope that continues on. The last thing that I'll make mention is that there's a bill for the surcharge of cell phones. And believe it or not, they want to raise that, and yet the counties who provide most of that service gets none of the funding. Or they only get it through a capital thing, they don't get anything through operating. So that's something that we're raising our eyebrows about and seeing if there isn't something we could do with it. Thank you.
Commissioner Collins?
I am happy to report, I have two people who've already stolen my thunder on this one, but from the legislative point of view at the Maine County Commissioners Association, for the first time since I've been the delegate there, we spend almost no time talking about jail funding, because I think that, I'm not going to say that we've won the war, but we've certainly advanced across the field tremendously from where we've been for the past 5, 6, 7 years.
Forever.
And it's ironically, it's caused a little bit of not difficulty, not tension, but just it's kind of a new era where we're having a hard time keeping track of all the other stuff that's going on, all the bills that have been mentioned, the binding arbitration bills. There's some workers' comp things that are wending their way through the legislature that the MCCA has opinions on, but it's kind of a new exercise to actually have to do something that doesn't have the word jail in it, and to get out and figure out how to lobby the legislature, because now it's not just 2 committees we have to worry about, it's, probably half a dozen. This is complicated by the fact that our executive director had a fairly severe injury a couple of months ago and was out for, I think, the better part of a month. I was out, I learned about that when I was out having a walk somewhere. My phone rang. It was the executive director's number, and I picked it up. I said, "Hi, Charlie," and he said, "Oh, this is Charlie's son." And I thought, this cannot be a good information. This cannot be a good news I'm about to get. And he was in the hospital for a week or two, I think. He had a fall with his dog or something. It was an accident, not an illness. So I guess that's probably a good thing. So he's been ramping back up, and it's been kind of a challenge to get there. Now I learned today that our lobbyist is out for a while. So I guess the good news is we don't have to worry about jail funding, and we have to worry about everything else. So that's been going. I feel much better about our legislative position than I have for a long time. So there is the Convention of Maine Counties coming up in the fall. You'll be hearing more about it. It's in a very lovely place. Get your rooms now, because you're going to be sharing one with me if you're not careful. Although I'm assured that that's not the case. So.
Where are we traveling to?
This is Knox County. It is called, Steve, what's the name of the facility? My mind is suddenly going blank. Point Lookout.
Yeah.
The former MBNA.
Yeah, it's apparently a really nice venue, and we've got a good lineup of speakers, and it'll be atmospherically much different from last year's here in the Portland area. So you'll be hearing about that. I'd like to have a good turnout up there. And it should be interesting and a lot of fun. So that's all I have. Thank you.
And I have very little, just to say congratulations to all of the people who are taking their leave of with diploma or degree in hand from all the area schools here in the next few weeks. Congratulations to them, and to their parents, who, if they have the same sigh of relief that I'm familiar with for when it happened to my family, this will be a moment of very low stress, and so that's great. One of the other things that I did notice, a few years ago, and then a couple of years ago, we spent some time and effort talking with the judicial department, some of which is in this building, about the fact that Cumberland County really should try to support a second location for a veterans court. And this was something that has developed actually in Maine and nationally, recognizing some of the special problems that veterans returning from combat situations, especially who leave the service may encounter as they're going along. And there's a lot of, speaking of stress, there's a lot of issues there that are kind of associated sometimes with post-traumatic issues and other issues. So for quite some time, it looked like a lack of resources was going to be a significant stumbling block, but I see that lately the judicial department has been able to implement a program here in Cumberland County, and as far as I know, that's all for the best. I have some partners who dealt with the earliest incarnation of that, which involved the Kennebec County Court facility, and it was an excellent program. It helped a lot. It diverted veterans who had to deal with some of their issues away from completely formalized criminal justice activity into more of a treatment modality, and it worked, and was very successful, but it was very burdensome for anybody in southern Maine because part of the program involves intense interaction with a judge over a long period of time and with other professionals. So that ride back and forth to Augusta in February is off the table now for some of our veterans, and that's an important facet for veterans in Maine. A little-known fact is that among the adult population, Maine has almost twice as many veterans as residents as the national average, and so the commitment to service has always been very deep in Maine. So that's I think a good addition. Other than that, anything else? We do have a workshop, but prior to that, I would ask for a motion to go into executive session.
I move that we go into executive session pursuant to 1 MRSA, Section 405, 6A, to receive bargaining guidance for contract negotiations.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
It's unanimous. And we will not be taking any motions at the conclusion of our executive session, so that will end our televised portion of our meeting tonight.